Thank you so much, and
Thank you
happy
so
to be
much.
here. Happy to be here at the Powerful Devs Conference. And today, as mentioned, MK and I will be talking about how to extend your copilots with connectors with Microsoft 365. And we have our content information up here. So if you follow those QR codes, you'll have the ability to reach out to us, get some more questions answered, ask any other follow-ups you'd like to have. A few things I want to talk about for a moment is the agenda we'll be covering. We'll be talking about what are extensions and why do you want to extend a Copilot. Then we're going to talk about using connectors as a means of extension. So connectors are within the Power Platform a way for you to use APIs coupled with authentication that allows you to connect to external data sources. Then we're going to talk about how to use REST APIs directly rather than a connector, and talk a little bit about certification. So I'd like to turn over to MK now to go over the first section here, which is talking about extensions.
Thank you so much, Nathan and Scott. Hi, everyone. I'm M.K. Majwa. I'm Senior Product Manager at Microsoft. I'm joining here today from Vancouver. So, very excited to be here to share with you what we are doing in extensibility. So, today I'll be talking about extensibility. And as we get into it, let's get started. Just hold on a second. The next slide is coming right up. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nathan. So, as we talk about extensibility, one of the most important things are agents, and today Copilot has become such an important part of our daily routine. It is hard to imagine it was just introduced overall just couple of years ago only. I use it all the time to rephrase my email, even for personal things like, okay, tell me fun things to do in Vancouver, but it is much more to it. There's much more to it. You can actually use these copilots for your enterprise data, for your apps, your flows, and whatnot. It has no limit. It takes you much more forward to it. And when we talk about it, there are two important pillars to it. The first one being the actions, and other one being knowledge. Action is the one that we'll talk today a lot more in detail as well. But firstly, like, what are these two components altogether? Action is the one where you can actually tell that agent to do a very specific task for you. You can define what are the things that you want this agent to do. It can be getting some information, it can be updating some information, it can be also creating altogether. There's no limit to it because there's a huge ecosystem of actions out there. Secondly, is knowledge. Knowledge is in your enterprise, you have so many tables, dataverse tables, and whatnot, and also you have so many files. You want this agent to get that information from those knowledge sources rather than you looking at multiple data sources, multiple tables altogether to fetch a specific information. Now, all these things are just a chat away, and you can talk to an agent and you can go forward from there. Now we will go into the demo phase because from what I am sharing, I would love to also show you how to pay them in action. So let me switch my screen and let's go over here. So now, in order to create any kind of an agent, the place you'll go to is Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is your place to create anything related to agents. I'll come over here on the create section, and you see over here the very top part of it calls about like, okay, can I create a new agent? I can click over here. It gives me a natural language experience where I can talk about it, tell what I want this agent to actually do, and create it. And if I click on create, it will start creating it for me. I skip the configuration, but in real sense, we will not do that. But this is just to tell you how simple the process is. And over here, I have an agent already created so that you don't see me typing for a long time, but it has a lot of information to get you started. So firstly, like first step that you'll get started on will be your name, the name that you want to give this agent. What is this agent expected to do? So you will have a very short description about what is it expected to do, so that the copilot understands what are your expectations from this particular agent. Next, you see over here, you get an option to add a knowledge source. It opens up multiple things. You have an option to add a public website, you have an option to use SharePoint, you have an option to also use Dataverse. All these data sources just get connected and you can just go forward and use your knowledge. Now, the actual stuff that we were just talking about, simply you can come over here, add any kind of an action. There's a search bar on top of over here where I can search anything that I expect to add, and you'll see that as soon as I type Salesforce, there's so many actions that came to it. Many times you would want that this agent is only to read information. I don't want it to update or delete anything. It's only for read stuff. You can choose only the read actions. If you want that there should be also an opportunity to edit or create in this agent, you can select that. So the options are there for you in order to choose from, specific to what is your business logic for which you want this thing to work out. Over here, I already have an action added on Salesforce, for which we'll see a demo in a couple of seconds. But let me go over other things as well. You also have things like starter prompts. For example, you have created a agent, and now it's distributed to 100 people across your organization. They understand what it is intended to do, but many a time they struggle to figure out the first thing that they should go ahead and try it out. So this is your clue to add any of your starter prompt over here. Like in this case, get accounts, so that you give them a clue about what is your intention over here with this particular agent. This helps them in getting started, getting a hint of like what is this agent expected to do. And then lastly, like the publish altogether, we had created this agent already, and this is just couple of clicks. There's no code needed in order for you to get started on. So yes, let's get into the testing experience altogether, because why will nobody would want to publish without once verifying what has been configured. So now this action that I added is get action records from Salesforce. So let's say get accounts. So the session gets started. This is an activity map that will come onto your screen to tell you what's happening behind the scene. It tells that it has called get account record for Salesforce. This is just to make sure that you know that how is Copilot working behind the scene, just in case you have so many other things added in your Copilot, like knowledge, actions. It tells you what is the one that Copilot chose. Over here, as you can see over here, with a single prompt, I have a lot of information. I have name, I have website information, I have phone number, I have the address. So rather than now going into the Salesforce, going to the 5 accounts one by one, getting this information, which might have taken me maybe 10 minutes, and collecting it for my email, now I just wrote a prompt. I can copy paste and just go get to a manager telling that, okay, these are the 5 accounts, this is the information, and go forward. This will help you save time. And trust me, you all know that there's so much value to time, there's so much to do in a day. So this makes this entire experience much more simpler and much more easier. So now let's go back to the slide itself so that we can talk a little more about things to do. So now coming to the next part of it, which is knowledge, which is like, okay, this is an experience that is giving you you have a copilot that is filled with wonderful information from world knowledge, artificial intelligence, and natural language. But now you are in an enterprise and you want to use that goodness in form of your enterprise data. So using your actions as well as knowledge, you can do everything in real time and in a much simpler format. Next part to it is Copilot Studio. What Copilot Studio allows you to do, this is a platform that we saw just couple of seconds ago, that can give you an experience to author, test, deploy, and manage. Authoring experience, we just saw, it's so simple. It's such a lot more easier for you to go over and go forward, because There's no code involved. You just do a couple of clicks and you just go forward from there. Second part of it is testing. You did not have to do anything extra to do testing. There's a copilot right on side of yours where you can just type in the queries that you intended this copilot agent to work for, and it will start going forward from there. The next part of it is deployment, which is your publish. Whenever you are ready and you feel like your agent is ready, you can just go ahead and deploy this one by using the publish. If you are doing it and testing it for yourself, you can publish it just to you and just go forward with it. But in case you are doing it for somebody, for an entire organization, in those cases it goes to your administrator for governance so that they can make sure it complies with the policies in your organization, and then you can go forward with it. They approve or disapprove, or they open it up to specific groups that they feel like are the ones that they should be using this particular agent. So there's definitely a governance and security part to it as well. Because it's in AI and Copilot experience, we want to make sure that it adheres with the governance rules of your organization. Lastly, manage. In most cases, if I've created an agent, it's not that after I feel like I've got some user feedback on this, okay, get is good. I also want to do update and a lot more. It's not that you can't add it later. You can just go back to your Copilot Studio, edit it again, add that particular action that somebody requested, and publish it. And it would go through the entire process, and your agent will be ready for you to use. Now, moving on to the next slide. What is connector action? Where does connector action come into place? We have an amazing experience of 1,300 plus connectors. They range from our first party connectors to our third party connectors like Salesforce and ServiceNow and a lot more. So you are not just limited to a couple of them. You are actually have a huge ecosystem that you can work with based on the need of your organization. And as we saw in our demo, that it works really well, of course, for your first party Microsoft related connectors, and it also works very well with other connectors like Salesforce and much more. Now, coming to the next screen, this is an experience which is very low code. As you saw, when I was working on it, there was no code needed. I was just typing in, I was just making selections, and things were getting added. So it's very much simpler for somebody who doesn't want to code much. But a very important thing is authentication is in play, because we are talking about enterprise data. So security is very much important. It's important that people get an access based on the roles only, because that's absolutely very important. So what happens whenever you're adding any kind of an action, it will ask you to add your username and password so that you only get access based on your role. As a maker, you will also have to authenticate, and you don't have to worry if it is 200, it is shared with 200 people. Will I be exposing my access to everyone? No, because at the runtime as well, the user also have to authenticate. So if in your organization there are 200 people and all of them have different roles and permissions, they will be able to work with them accordingly. And lastly, the low code. So it's not only limited to the 1,300 amazing ecosystem we have, but it also has custom connectors. For the ones who are not familiar with custom connectors, other than these connectors, you can also create a connector of your own using experiences that are already available on Paras, Power Automate, and multiple locations. You can create these connectors, you can use them as a regular connector within your organization and add them as an action, take it forward from there. All those experiences are also very local, so you should be able to get started very easily. And now I'll hand over to Nathan, who is with you right in the room to talk about REST API action.
Thank you, MK. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to talk now about how you can use REST API actions to extend your Copilot. So as MK had mentioned, you can use connectors to improve your Copilot's capabilities to utilize functionality, and those connectors are pre-built and they're available from Microsoft, or you can build your custom connectors. But what if you don't have a connector, or you don't have the urge to build a custom connector? You can actually use your APIs directly without having to have a connector ready, if that's going to meet your needs as well. And so I'm going to switch over to my demo now, which is going to walk us through the process of using an API, if we wanted to use that, to be able to add actions into our Copilot. All right, so here I am inside of Copilot Studio, just as MK was, and I'm inside of an agent that's already been created. And just like MK did, I'm going to click Add Action to add a new action. Now from here, in the actions, I'm getting a whole bunch of different actions listed. It's going to be a mix of all of the actions available to me. If I want to add a new action based off of an API, though, I'm not going to search on it, because that's not going to be available. What I want to do is tell it I want to add a new action, and then I tell it I want to use a REST API. And when I do that, it's going to bring me up this page that allows me to actually upload my REST API. So I can either drag and drop, or I can click here and it will open up one of the standard Windows dialog boxes. And here I have a number of files associated to this API specifically. So this is a ticket management system, and I have this Swagger that I'm going to use, which is basically my entire Swagger API set that I want to be able to use for this particular transaction. So by selecting it and clicking Open, it will load it into the system. And so now here I can see all the details of my API and decide, oh, is this the right one I want to use? This is definitely what I want to use. So from here, I can click Next, and it will allow me to go through the configuration process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to add a name for this. So I'm just going to call this new TMS. No, I don't like that. I'm going to call this Nathan TMS. So it's easier to find for me. Now, once you give it a name, the other thing you have to be aware of when you're adding any sort of action on a Copilot is the description. So the description is how the LLM and Copilot are going to identify which action to pick. And so it's going to be really important to use something useful here. So it's a simple service to manage tickets. We could also put in here create, locate, and display tickets. By putting this in, this gives additional text that's going to be utilized as a trigger to be able to say, oh, I want to create a ticket, I want to find this particular action. Or I need to display my tickets, it will find this as well. Once I enter that information and click Next, it will take this information and create the shell of my action that I'm about to create. And it's going to take me to the next screen. You'll notice here that at the bottom there is a list for solutions. The system is going to allow you to put this into a Power Platform solution as you build it. So those of you familiar with the solution infrastructure, you can select any one of your solutions that exists, but if not, it will put it into a specific custom solution that matches the action you're creating so that it's created into a package that's easily manageable. Oh, there was an error saving my action. Just in case, I'm going to add a new addition to my action name. So it does not like it if you try to use an action that has the same name. So that's most likely what happened here. So we'll try again with my updated name, and this should work now this time. So once you provide this information and it loads, the next thing it's going to do is take me to a screen to select my authentication. So we've got a couple different authentication models here. Like if I picked Auth 2.0, it's going to ask me all of these authentication questions. So my ID, my secret, my URLs. So I would have to provide all that information. In this example, I'm picking none because this is a no auth API, but as you see, you will have to provide security information as necessary based off of the types you have. And right now there are the 3 types available, and in the future there may be additional. By clicking Next after selecting none, it's going to take me into the next page, which lets me pick which one of the actions on this REST API I want to be able to enable. The important thing about selecting these actions is you're able to configure what you want to be used by your organization. So if you just click everything and add all of them, people have the ability to get, create, delete, and update. Well, what if I don't want anybody in my organization to delete a ticket? Well, what I can do is as I configure this REST API, I can just not select it. And if I don't select it, you can't use it. I'm going to pick Get Tickets for right now. And here again, it's asking me for a description and an action name. So I'm just going to leave it as it is in this case. But I can click through the number of additional screens. So then it's going to show me my inputs and outputs. These are the different input fields I can use. These are the different outputs I'll get back. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of skip to the last page here because there are a couple other screens that, like conversation starters and such, that don't currently apply to actions and agents. So they will be available shortly, but at the moment, agents don't use those features, so I won't really dwell on them. So once I get to the end here, you'll see I've created a new action for Get Tickets. Now what I want to do is I want to back up and I want to add one more action. So I want to do create as well. So I can show you that not only can you get data, but you can create data. And I'm just going to click through these screens. These are all identical screens to the last ones. No reason for us to talk more about them. Once the system completes adding these into the list of actions, it'll bring me up to the page that shows me which actions are available. And when that happens, I'll be able to finalize the process by publishing it. So here's the list of these are the 2 actions. So notice these are the only 2 actions that will be available to me. I won't be able to update or delete. I click next and it's going to publish it. And by publishing it, it makes it available to the system to add into an agent. So it'll take just a few seconds and it will let me know when it's finished. And as that completes, it's going to add that into the library at this time. And the library is a list of all the available actions and connections and agents that can be used in order to access data through the Copilot. So now that we're finished, I can switch back over here. I'll just go ahead and save and close. Now, what I want to do, let's see if it pops up right away here. Nathan TMS, new, right here. So you see right away, I created it and here it is. So from here, now I want to first go ahead and add the get ticket. So let me find the get ticket for Nathan TMS new. So I want to be able to get my tickets. And then after that, I'll add create. And then we'll go ahead and test it just like MK did. All right, so now we're good here. I'll add. Now here's where you configure it. So you'll go ahead and be able to get the ability for you to configure the tickets and how it works and the inputs and outputs. Here I'm just going to add it as is, but you do have the configuration option on each individual action level. And then after it adds this, I'll just quickly click through those same screens for create. And then I'll show you the process in action. So we built these actively right now. And as we built these, we're creating that infrastructure that's going to be used. But in a moment when we go to test it, you'll see that it's going to ask me for my security information as well when I attempt to use it. So now I just want to go find my create really quickly, because I want to show you that it will create a ticket as well. And once we add this action, we can go ahead and do the testing demo that we saw earlier. So as you can see, this is the amount of time it took me to just add in these APIs for use. They're now ready to use. I can go ahead and use them immediately. So if I go here to my actions, one thing I want to just do is make sure that we're not using in this other data that we looked at before. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off these other ones that I had added in on previous examples. So I'm not using those anymore. I'm only using my brand new ones. And as soon as these are off, I can ask it to get tickets. And this is using that same test panel that MK mentioned and the same activity map. And we'll see that it's going back into this TDS system now and getting my tickets. And this is going to ask me to connect. And it's asked me to connect because it has security-based authentication on it. So it needs to make sure we have a connection. So even though we had set this up before, I have to make a connection for it to be able to access the data. And once we create that connection, we can use it. And that's how we make sure that everybody's authenticated and accessing the correct data they have permissions to see and view. All right, so now that that's done, I can come back here and retry that request that I made. And you can see over here, it did a get tickets. There's 3 items. Over here on this side, it showed me 3 items. Now, if I want to create one, I can use the create ticket command. And I know I need to provide a title. So I'll put get storage info, and my description is verify storage consumption details. Those are the only 2 required fields to create this. And if I hit enter, now it's going to go attempt to create a ticket. So not only can I go and get data from the source and I can view it, but you can see here that's putting these inputs into these fields and passing it forward. And it tells us we created it. And if I get tickets now, you'll see that it created the ticket for me. So not only can a Copilot be used to gather and look at data and display it in different ways that you would like to show it, but you now can actually take actions and add things. You can create, you can edit, you can update, you can delete. So it's, there we go. There's the new ticket that I created right here. So right through the testing experience, I put it in and created it. I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint presentation now and go through a couple slides. So the REST API actions that we mentioned, we are utilizing these REST API actions or OpenAI APIs that can be built and that require you to configure them, and they do have read and write capabilities. And once you have those available to you, I want to talk a little bit about certification these last few moments. Certification allows you to take any of these custom connectors that you've created or these APIs and submit them for use to a wider audience. When you build these, they're built for your organization on your tenant, and you can use them. But if you want to add these into a way that you can make that available to the entire infrastructure of Power Platform, you can certify these. And by certifying them, it makes them available to everybody on the list of connectors, so they can find them in that list of 1,300 connectors, select them and download them and use them. So it's a great way to get your product out there and make that available for people to see it. Or if you see a product that you don't have this information for and you're building it over and over, you might want to consider submitting it for certification with Microsoft. We'll verify that it's working appropriately, and then that can be made available to the entire world, and people can have access to the functionality that you've created. Some of the benefits of the certification are making your connector available to a wider audience, and also if you have this as part of one of your products, it increases your ability to have better marketing and awareness of your product and better access to your product. So as all the MVPs and ISVs out there that are working with us, this is a great benefit to you to make sure your product gets the visibility it needs. So as this call to action then, MK and I'd like to kind of reach out to you and say, go ahead and try using some agents, add some actions using connectors or REST APIs, play around with it, have some fun with it, and also take a look at the certification process through our Microsoft community and allow you to find out how you can go through the Partner Center to certify these actions for availability outside of just your organization.